Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today's topic is how to make business boom using the Azure cloud. A little later, we'll share a case study as just one example where an Azure cloud solution and DiamondIT has made a measurable impact to a local business. And that's why throughout today's event, I'd like to challenge you to consider something. What could a move to the cloud mean for your business? So our sessions are always recorded for those who may not be able to attend during our live event. But we're taking questions throughout the event, so give us a drop in the Q&A. Let us know as you think of them. If you can, open that Q&A panel now and take a moment to drop us a note and tell us that you found it. Tell us if your organization is currently leveraging Microsoft Azure or any other Microsoft cloud apps and services. A little about DiamondIT. DiamondIT is a security-focused managed services provider. We're a Microsoft Gold partner. We were founded in 2005, and we have offices here in Bakersfield and also Northern LA. We're really proud of our associations with organizations like Vistage and Evolve Peer Groups. Our memberships in those groups, they help us constantly improve and mature our services and our offerings. In these groups, we share ideas with other like-minded organizations. We all have the common goal of being a best-in-class provider. We're also on the Secure the Village Leadership Council, and we take a great deal of pride in educating the business community. We hope that our guidance and our efforts to educate can make the business community a safer place for everyone. My name is Jeremy Meehan. I'm the lead VCTO, the lead Chief Technology Officer for DiamondIT. With us here today is also Matt Mayo. He's the CEO of DiamondIT, and he's going to help me answer questions in the Q&A. And our speaker today is Ryan Cromar. Ryan's the Microsoft Partner Development Director at Pax8. We're going to turn things over to him, talk a little bit about the Azure cloud and how it can help make your business boom.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. I'm just going to share my screen and we'll get this started. So like Jeremy said, I'm the Microsoft Partner Development Director at Pax8. What does that mean, really? It means I work very closely with Microsoft and a lot of partners on helping educate and enable folks on all Microsoft solutions and what they can do to go to the cloud quite easily. One of the things that we've seen, especially over the last year, is that moving to the cloud is now more than ever at the forefront of people's thought. Change is coming, if not already happened. The phrase that we've heard from Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella, is that over 2 years of digital transformation is happening every 2 months. And I absolutely believe it when we see or say, excuse me, that 89% of SMB clients have already taken some steps to respond to COVID-19, and whether that's moving their infrastructure to the cloud, enabling a remote workforce, being more secure with multiple devices or bring your own devices with their employees. There's multiple things that folks can do to really take that next step to the cloud without fully ripping the Band-Aid off. And I think that kind of leads me into this next slide where, we touch on it's okay to not just rip and replace everything and move to the cloud, because that can be scary. And oftentimes it does take a little bit of hand-holding to feel like you're ready to go to the cloud. What's great about something like a Microsoft Azure and working with Diamond is you're able to have this crawl, walk, run approach, and you can really move to the cloud at your own pace. So when you think of a fully managed solution, you may have seen some kind of or some form of this image in the past. When you're talking about software as a service, that's everything all in one. That's Microsoft 365. When you're really just talking about the infrastructure or the components of the back end, that's Microsoft Azure. And what's great about Azure is it's as little or as much as you want it to be. And oftentimes, as an end customer, it can be quite confusing to know when is the right time to move to Azure, or can Azure or public cloud support the needs that I have as an end customer. And when you look at what's available within Azure, the answer is a ton. There are 20,000 different SKUs within Azure, but what's great is that by working with a DiamondIT, you're able to build a solution that's absolutely right for you. So it doesn't matter if you're, for example, an architecture firm utilizing a CAD software and you need really, really fast GPUs to do so. Well, Azure can provide that. If you're really just looking for storage or backup and disaster recovery for your data, Azure can help provide those things as well. If you're looking for remote work enablement with your employees, Azure Windows Virtual Desktop can provide that securely and really, really simply. Now, the other component of Azure is if you have multiple regions, managing all the information or data becomes much more cumbersome when you've got all these different on-premise solutions. And so when you talk about Azure, you're able to create this environment where you're able to manage on-prem, in the cloud, all in one solution. So some of the things that are important to think about when you're talking about Azure is not necessarily, how many VMs do we need or how many domain controllers do we need? And those things are important, but it's really asking yourself these types of questions, right? And asking, does your existing solution enable the collaboration that you need? Do you have security in place? What are you doing to enable remote work? And so I'll touch on kind of these three components and how Azure can help enable you with these three topics. So we'll start with remote work. It really comes down to, in the last year, we've seen just a multitude of folks moving to that remote work environment where they're maybe utilizing their own devices, and that can kind of create a scenario where things maybe aren't as secure. When you have situations like that, Windows Virtual Desktop really becomes the answer for remote work. It allows you to set up a full Windows 10 experience, plus all the productivity that a customer or you need with Microsoft solutions. So everything from Outlook to PowerPoint, Word, it's all right there. Plus the security components are baked into Microsoft 365 and Windows 10. And it also allows you to deploy this on thin clients, so not necessarily full PCs, and also just about any mobile device. So it gives you the capabilities of a full user desktop and application experience no matter where you are as a user. And that's more popular than ever because now you've got, a ton of employees either on the go or working remotely. And it really gives you the access and capabilities of that, of literally sitting at your desk in the office, from really anywhere you are. So it's something to really think about as you continue this remote work experience with your employees, or if you're looking to grow and allow for employees to be remote or across regions. So when you cross regions, oftentimes now you kind of come out of this, what I like to call the walled garden. And so let me kind of paint a picture here of what security looks like or used to look like. A year ago or 2 years ago, you would go into the office and connect to the company Wi-Fi. And the moment you did so, you were safe and secure and protected by that company firewall. So you really were safe from any kind of bad actors or threats. Well, now you and your employees are remote, you're on the go, you're working from the same device that you use to post to Instagram. And that can compromise the data, the network, the device. It can be a dangerous situation. And so you now have to secure the identity. Is this person who they say they are on the right device are they a hacker? Who is this person? And that's really what you're doing now. It's no longer getting them into your walled garden and keeping them safe. It's really creating an identity management plane. And we at Pax8 really think of security as like a foundation, or I like to joke like Shrek, right? It's an onion. Security has layers. And we think of these 6 components whenever you're thinking about securing Microsoft or just your environment in general. And what's great about a Microsoft Azure is you're able to accomplish these things utilizing Active Directory in Azure, or syncing your on-prem Active Directory with Azure. So, you're almost halfway there with all the security that is recommended simply by utilizing multi-factor authentication, which everyone knows and loves. You've probably done it with your bank or another third party. Conditional access, which is absolutely fantastic. If you're not familiar with conditional access, it really controls who can access which apps, which data, which networks, from which device they can access it from, and which geolocation. So for example, if Joe Schmo in sales is logging on to a company network or accessing company information on his mobile device, but then we're also seeing that his laptop is logging in Paris, then we probably know that something's out of whack, and that isn't going to allow that person outside of that geolocation to access that information. And all of this is controlled with Azure Active Directory Sync. So it is really, really important that you as a customer utilize some form of security to keep those remote workers absolutely safe. And think about this. If right now your employees are remote and they're not utilizing a VPN or virtual private network to access your company information, data, or network, then none of those devices they're using are checking in to the Active Directory to make sure, is this person who they say they are? Do they have the access they're supposed to have? By utilizing Azure Active Directory Sync, you have absolute control over who is accessing what, and you're able to instill security policies that really give you, one, the visibility as to who's touching what, but the peace of mind to know that you have a very safe and secure network. When you think about, a lot of the hacks or ransomware you hear in the news, 90+% of those attacks would have been thwarted or stopped by utilizing multi-factor authentication. The hacker or bad actor would try and access the network. They would see that they have to enter a multi-factor or 2-factor code, like the one you get on your cell phone for a third party or your banking. And when they're unable to show that number, they quickly move on to the next victim, I guess you could say. And really that allows for, really, really secure and robust security without a lot of heavy lift on your side. So again, it's really, really important to think about, with Azure, this is a way for you to be more secure as a company without a lot of lift. And if you don't have plans to bring everyone back into an office full time, you have to have a solution for what's going on for folks that are bring your own device and working remotely. Because if they aren't utilizing some kind of VPN, they are exposed and you have no idea who's accessing that information. And it is a scary thought. So outside of the security component, let's talk a little bit about the scaling of your business and the key components or reasons why we see customers moving to the cloud. So it kind of starts with, the ability to migrate on your own terms. So when you think of customers and yourselves, think of all the unique needs you have as a business. Think of, what your hardware looks like for your infrastructure. What are you running your network on? Do you have someone that manages that? The great thing about a public cloud like Microsoft Azure is that you can take what you have in that closet or whatever hardware you have existing, and you can move that to the cloud little by little on your own terms. Like I kind of said before, you don't have to rip the Band-Aid off and move everything to the cloud at once. You're able to kind of bite off small chunks and really have that hybrid environment so that you can really see the benefits of moving to the cloud instead of buying new hardware or refreshing new hardware. It's definitely a way for you to scale into the cloud without having to, kind of dive in with a huge cost or budget, right? And speaking of kind of diving in, it's really designed for growth. Think of this example, right? When you are a small business, you oftentimes are, if you're running on premise, you're refreshing your hardware, every 3 to 5 years, maybe more. And oftentimes, if you were to need to refresh, you have to think of the future, right? You can't just scale for what your needs are right now. You almost have to over purchase to be able to scale for what you're going to grow into while you own this hardware over the next 3, 5, 10 years, whatever that looks like. The problem with that is you're having this huge capital expense upfront to pay for all this hardware. Whereas with an Azure or public cloud, you're able to buy what you need and you pay for what you need right now and nothing more. And it grows with you as you grow. So you can add on and scale as your business goes up and down, seamlessly. So it's really a benefit to you because you're not having to worry about, is this the right hardware? Is this what we need? Do we have to go buy more? Can someone help me go purchase and procure these things and then set them up and manage them? Not even to mention, the electricity it costs, just a lot of factors that go out the window. And the other component is the access to amazing tools. So Microsoft Azure has an entire marketplace of tools and applications that are integrated and fit very, very well with an Azure environment. So they can help you build solutions with Diamond. It really is, as much or as little as you want to consume these third-party tools. I really could spend an entire session just walking through what these tools are, what's out there, what integrates with Azure. All I can really say is to speak to your rep at Diamond and have a conversation around what are some of the things that you guys could be doing together. And then this is something that I think a lot of SMBs have in the top of their head, right? They're thinking, how do I scale my business? How do I be secure? How can I secure my network? How do I, have the right hardware or pay for these things as my company scales? And there's a lot of concerns and challenges that we're hearing from all types of SMBs and IT leaders. And here, what I want to kind of show next is, these are some examples of the triggers or reasons why we're seeing a lot of SMBs move to the cloud. And the first, the two that I really want to touch on are compliance and security threats. Now, if you're a customer who has dealt with any kind of security breach, or you have to worry about the certain industry you're in and the compliance needs, Azure or a public cloud is definitely something you want to look at because it comes out of the box with a lot of the security components you need to check those compliance boxes. When you go and do these things yourself with your own hardware, it can be very difficult to make sure that you've turned every dial and pulled every lever that is absolutely required to maintain compliance. When you work with Diamond and Microsoft, you're able to build a secure and compliant infrastructure that doesn't stress you out because you're having to worry about do I conflict with these compliance metrics? Am I worried about a hack or some kind of ransomware? All of those things are really managed and taken care of for you. And then the other piece is this, and We've seen this more and more, especially over the last couple of years. We've seen more mergers and acquisitions in the SMB market than ever before. And oftentimes what that means is these SMBs are two different regions merging together, or similar region but different location merging together, consuming data, sharing network information. It really becomes cumbersome to grow or integrate that business. And what typically happens then is that move to the cloud becomes a lot more understandable and easy, because wow, now we've got two physical on-prem systems or networks. How do we integrate these? Because now we're one, and how do we make this a really seamless experience for all the employees and your end customers? So it really comes down to the capabilities of what going to the cloud can mean for you, and how quickly you can really build your business if an acquisition is something that's happened recently. On top of an acquisition, something that really has happened as well is we're seeing an upward trend in job growth and capacity, right? So a lot of companies are hiring and they're needing to onboard employees like crazy. And now more than ever, these employees are remote. So that WVD, or virtual desktop conversation, comes into mind of what are you doing to provide a secure and productive experience for your employee as they're remote. And if you're scaling your business at any capacity, Windows Virtual Desktop is a great way to roll out a really secure, productive experience for all of your users. And also, surprise, surprise, it checks all the security and compliance boxes that I mentioned earlier. So really it comes down to, what are the needs of your company and how does Azure fit those needs? So it doesn't matter if it's security, compliance piece, you're quickly growing as a company, or that hardware refresh is coming, that's definitely something that is top of mind. And also these, something I didn't mention in the bottom left here is the data center contract. So if you are utilizing a co-location or a third-party data center to manage everything and really provide that network for you, there's obviously 1, 2, 3-year contracts, 5-year contracts that you probably have. When those are expiring, that's the time to think about, what has our spend been like? Is it the right time for us to move to the cloud? Does this make sense? And to kind of give you some examples, I want to show you, here are some of the most popular reasons or solutions that we're seeing when SMBs are moving to the cloud. So the most common workload that we're seeing is Windows VMs. So these are commonly used in infrastructure solutions, or what we like to call lift and shift. So this could be a VPN, this could be a domain controller, this could be things that you would run your business on in the cloud. But what's interesting is the next most common is storage solutions, and you also see backup solutions. So what we're seeing more than ever in the SMB market is that people are utilizing the cloud to safely secure and back up their data in case of any type of disaster, whether that's fire, lightning or thunderstorm, whatever the case may be. This is a great solution for you as well. So something to think about as you're thinking of your business needs, right? We talked about the security component and the remote work components. Think about the backup and continuity components as well. It's really, really important to be thinking of these things so that you can know all the capabilities of when it comes to Azure and what that can mean for your business. So again, I mentioned some of the more common solutions that people are using Azure for. Just to kind of reiterate, these are the common migration projects that we are seeing in the market, right? So just something to think about. If you have one of these things, going on, maybe that's one of those things you could move to the cloud and see what that can do for you or what that experience looks like. So again, these are some of those common workloads. The most common three, I would say, are the Windows and SQL Server in the top left. So obviously, people are trying to move those aging servers to the cloud to make them more robust and scalable. Also, some of the server licensing, is a little bit aged and dated. It's time to upgrade to the latest and greatest. So we have been seeing a lot of small businesses using Azure in those cases. The other one is specialized workloads or web applications. So oftentimes you as the end customer have certain applications or line of business apps that are very specific or niche to your market that either can't be moved to the cloud or need to be on a specific server. That's absolutely okay, but we can actually look at how do we move those to the cloud and what capabilities are there to make things a little bit easier in the future, because being on that physical server long term is not the answer. It's something that you have to kind of renew and refresh every 3 to 5 years, like I mentioned. And if this is something that you as a company are using very frequently and looking to scale, the cloud is a great option. And the last piece is that bottom right. So VDI stands for Virtual Desktop Interface, or more commonly known as Windows Virtual Desktop. This really is what I like to call the remote work enablement component of Microsoft Azure. This really allows those remote employees, like I've been saying, to be productive and secure in a remote environment. So I kind of want to touch on 4 different scenarios that we typically see with an SMB customer. This way, maybe you can self-identify as, hey, these are some of the needs that you have as the end customer. And what's great is that Diamond is able to work in unison with Pax8 and Microsoft to deliver solutions no matter what type of end customer you are. So the first one, I'm going to start with is, that end customer that's looking to modernize your workforce. So if you're someone who's concerned about how does my team collaborate together, how are they going to utilize all these different, BYOD, these bring your own devices, and then access our company network and all the content that we have. The first thing that comes to mind is a sales or a marketing team here. How do you enable that team to really be collaborative and productive together? And a lot of it starts with Azure and that Windows Virtual Desktop experience. So you have to think of, am I the type of customer that runs a sales and marketing org, has a lot of remote employees, is maybe not a technical security expert, really someone who's looking to just make things really simple. This is a great answer for you. It really allows you to be productive and collaborative using that Windows Virtual Desktop experience, but also secure, and a DiamondIT can help implement those solutions for you. If you're someone who's really more concerned on the security components, Azure can kind of suit your needs as well. So when you think of resiliency or backup, you heard me talk about the capabilities with Azure storage and backup. Another component is Azure Site Recovery. So this is a way for you to really just focus on your business, knowing that all the backup and security is done, and it's not something that you have to stress about. The other piece that's pretty interesting with security here is that conditional access, right? So I mentioned earlier, and I do want to reiterate, you can really utilize Microsoft's machine learning capabilities to catch any unusual hacks or attempts. So just to reiterate, right, conditional access, what that's doing is it's looking at the device, the geolocation, the behavior, the network, all the things that are going on with the person trying to access that data or network, and it's making an informed decision as to whether or not that is realistic or not, and it's going to either approve or deny that person access. So it's a really cool way for you to be ultra secure. So if that's something that's top of mind for you as a company, this is a way for you to do so utilizing Microsoft solutions. Now, if you're a company who, the next two are kind of go hand in hand, and that's really the capabilities of digital transformation and personalized experiences. And what I mean by that is, how are you utilizing, Microsoft Azure to create a really killer experience for your team? It also, can really transform the way that you do business. Oftentimes we're doing or transacting business on Excel docs, and it's very manual. One of the things that Microsoft really provides is the capability to keep all of your data secure, but also to provide analytics and scaling with all the tools that are baked within Microsoft Azure. So really cool stuff there. When it comes to the personalized experience component, one of the things that I like to touch on here is the agility that you have. So I kind of mentioned this earlier, but do want to reiterate, with a Microsoft Azure, have the business and application agility to really scale your business at a pace that you wouldn't be able to do with physical hardware. What I mean by that is, if you, like I said, if you've got hardware that you just purchased, you have to think about where your business is going to be in 3, 5, 7, 10 years from now. And is that hardware going to be able to scale with what you're trying to accomplish? The beautiful thing with a public cloud is it's able to scale with you and give you a really great experience, no matter if you're using it for Windows or SQL Server, or just creating that virtual desktop experience for your team. So there are a couple things to think about whenever it comes to moving to the cloud. And one of the things I'll start with is kind of the during the migration or pre-migration experience. So one thing that is very scary to end customers is that when it comes to moving to the cloud, they think of it as being very expensive. And I absolutely get the concern. What's great is that we and Diamond are able to work with you and price out what it would look like to take your existing infrastructure and move it to the cloud, but also to show you what it would look like to scale that business over time to match the needs that you have as you grow your business. So we're able to give you the content and hand-holding you need to point you in the right direction for all those things. Now, the other component that you see before the migration is the capability of Azure Hybrid Benefit, which can decrease your cost just a little bit, as well as Azure Reserved Instances. So if you know that you as a business are going to be consuming X number of hours of Azure or resources, it's a way for you to lock in a very low price so that you're able to save a little bit of money and still consume the solutions within Azure that you need to consume to run your business. Now, once you've deployed the cloud, what's beautiful is that Diamond is able to work with you to look at, one, do we have all the best practices when it comes to security and productivity implemented? So you get that handheld experience of, you've rolled out the cloud, now you feel warm and fuzzy because you've got all the security you need and someone monitoring it for you. On top of the security, what Diamond will do is they'll look at how is this performing and what does the consumption look like? And then that way we can lock in your reserved instances once we've seen almost like a report of what your consumption has been, so we can really optimize your costs over time. And that way, you're not overspending when it comes to Azure. Really, it's just giving you exactly what you need when you need it, excuse me, kind of that pay-as-you-go type of model. So I do want to point to the Diamond team here and have them kind of share an experience. One of the things that is really cool is that, it's great to talk about the capabilities of Azure and what it can do, but it's even better to show here's how it really helps a small business. So I was gonna, maybe ask Jeremy to come on and share the experience that John Balfin's Homes had by working with Diamond and what their experience was in terms of moving to the cloud. Also going to ask these guys to share the link to the blog post, because it really is a cool way for you to see what Diamond did for this customer and how Azure and Microsoft was able to enable them. So Jeremy, could you kind of give us a brief overview of what this is and what happened exactly?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So, we love to cite examples, real world examples. This is just one. We had an existing customer. They were at the end of their hardware life cycle. They had some challenges with, remote work and that user experience in multiple locations and sites. They had, previous bad experiences with the cloud. So they were a little gun shy over moving to the cloud. And in a 30-day period of time, we were able to help them with that cloud transition and journey. We didn't exactly lift and shift. We actually did a full migration to an Azure cloud platform with remote desktop services. And since that transition, we've seen their support costs plummet. We can actually measure their support needs have been slashed by about 50%. And no matter where they work, whether they're in a satellite office or they're in the main location here, through that Azure cloud solution and that remote desktop solution, all their users have a unified experience, productivity's increased, and their business is booming right now. COVID was something that certainly kind of accelerated some of this remote work. In this case, they were able to benefit from some of those things, just because they had these solutions in place prior to COVID really hitting us. So this is a case study we published. I think we published it back in April. It's a fantastic example. So it's easy to take our word for it about how things work for your organization. We invite you to take a look at our customer testimonials and our case studies and give you real world examples where someone else can tell you all about how awesome an Azure cloud solution can be.
Awesome, Jeremy. And I think that's the thing is, we can talk about how great Microsoft is and how it enables customers all day long. But the real world scenarios are really what matter, I think, because it showcases how this stuff really helps the average customer and their day-to-day solution. So, one thing I wanted to kind of touch on, before we close out for Q&A, is really just, if nothing else you learn from this session, these 5 things are what you should be thinking about, right? So no more CapEx or capital expenditures. So why pay for expensive hardware when you don't have to? So Azure is a subscription service. It frees you up from that CapEx experience and all the time it takes to really manage those servers locally. So that means you really can focus on just running your business and not having to worry about hardware refreshes and what that's going to cost you and the whole 9 yards. And then business continuity. I mean, we all know that a data disaster is one of the worst things that a business can experience. And even minor outages for a couple hours here and there can really put you at a disadvantage and kill your business. So in order to make sure that you're able to access all your apps, all your data, and make sure your business is able to be up and running, you have to think about backup and business continuity, because it's one of those things where we very often hear from customers that had a flood or had a fire and wish they did it, and now they're building out complex business continuity strategies, and it's almost too late at that point, right? So it's important to think about what you're doing in the future and how you're solving these problems. And then the pay for what you use piece is super duper important. Sometimes you need more capacity, sometimes you need more storage, more compute, and sometimes you need less. And you can really scale up and down to meet the needs of your business. If you're seasonal, if you are scaling fast and need to plan for the future and are concerned about buying hardware, this is a great way for you to only pay for what you use and allows you to really build your business into the cloud over time. And then the tiered approach component, you heard me a couple times talk about that ripping the Band-Aid off. So, moving to the cloud shouldn't be just like an all or nothing decision, right? It certainly shouldn't be super difficult for you, because if it is, it's not the right decision. So with an Azure or public cloud, like I said, you can move as little or as much at your own pace, at your own timeline. So it doesn't matter if you're looking to move, some accounting, whether that's QuickBooks, some CRM, whether that's, Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever it is. There's literally a place for everything within Azure, and you can go at your own pace and really allow you to scale as you feel confident. And then the big thing is security. I can't, say enough how important security is, especially in this COVID environment where we now have a ton of people working remotely on their own devices across the world. It really has changed the way that we do business, and it comes down to that identity management component instead of that walled garden experience, right? So to kind of reiterate, instead of having you behind this walled garden in your company network physically on their Wi-Fi, you now are all across the globe working remotely on your own devices. It's more important than ever to have a strategy to implement multi-factor authentication and password management. That allows you to really control who's touching what and where. Also, it would stop, like I've said before, 90+% of attacks that we see in the market. So I want to pass it back to Jeremy, see if there are some questions in the chat. I do want to thank the team for allowing me to speak to you today. Something that I want to leave you with is, it really is important to have a strategy for what you're doing with the cloud. I think, 10, 15 years ago, we had this idea that the cloud was going to be, absolutely decimate data centers and colos. In reality, it's helped create this hybrid environment where you, like I've said, can crawl, walk, or run your way to the cloud. So it really doesn't matter if you're looking to rip and replace and shift your entire company, or you kind of want to do it in bite-sized chunks. That's what's great about Microsoft Azure, is you can do it at your own pace, and you have someone with a DiamondIT who can help walk you through what this looks like and make sure you have a really great experience in doing so. So I wanted to thank these guys before we get to the Q&A for having me here today, and I'll pass it back over to Jeremy.
Ryan, thanks, man. I appreciate you sharing, and we always appreciate the thought leadership that you bring to the discussion and how accessible you make Azure for businesses. I'm not sure how to pick a favorite topic. MFA, conditional access, cost optimization, that hybrid transition and shift to the cloud. I talk about these things with our clients all the time, and I like how you make them, again, understandable and accessible for most businesses to get. We'll leave the Q&A open for a minute to allow anyone to ask any questions, so please stick around with us. While we wait for them in chat, I know there's a bit of a delay. We do want to thank you for attending. We'd love to have a conversation with you and your organization with how Diamond can help with the journey to the cloud. We can also work with you to cost optimize your cloud spend, secure your existing environments. Let us know if we can get something on the schedule. Give us a shout out in chat or a quick email if you're interested in getting something set up. We do got a couple questions here, Ryan. One I think Matt shared with us earlier. Can you share maybe some of the most common challenges that businesses face when trying to jump in or to overcome Azure?
Absolutely, apologize. I was on mute there. So one of the things that we often hear from our customers when helping them move to the cloud, obviously, is that cost. It's very scary to have to pay a monthly fee for something that they in the past and historically have paid once every few years for this hardware components plus the licensing and management, et cetera, et cetera. So really, it comes down to really showcasing what are the cost savings capabilities and what is the scalability? Because you've heard me say it a few times, it can be very costly to run your own hardware, between someone managing it, the licensing involved, the physical electricity, the physical space required. It's a lot of things that go into that. And in order to match your business, or excuse me, your business needs with the scale of your business, you almost have to over purchase hardware to grow into it. And oftentimes that can lead to a big expense every 3, 5, 7, 10 years. And you really have to do the math to say, is that expense, worth it when we could be paying a monthly fee, and those fees could be very similar or less than what we paid for this hardware. And with those monthly fees and subscriptions, we are now getting access to the latest and greatest in security, an always on and up to date experience, backup and recovery from Microsoft themselves. There's a lot of things that come with it that make the cost a little more appealing. So cost is definitely the big concern that a lot of folks have. The other concern as well is the ease of management, or who's going to manage this for me. And what's beautiful is when you have someone like a DiamondIT, they can really walk you through what this experience is going to look like and how to make this as seamless and easy as possible for you. So, definitely something we hear a lot from customers, but know that there are concerns, but there's absolutely a methodology to overcome those concerns, especially when it comes to cost.
I love the flexibility and the scalability of a cloud solution. I like what you said about not having to overbuy hardware, because we're always guessing. And as soon as you overbuy, you overspend, you're never going to get that back. When you underbuy, obviously it's more expensive, more costly to have to buy a second time trying to integrate that hardware. But it's not just the server hardware storage infrastructure. You've got power and power infrastructure, right? Battery backups and power redundancies, networking infrastructure, cooling costs, physical security, lots of additional costs. That's not just the same total cost of ownership as it is just purchasing a piece of server hardware. But with Azure, the cloud, certainly you can scale up. If you need more, let's add some more. And when you don't need that anymore, we can always scale that back too. So
exactly, it really comes down to the scalability and fluidity of Azure. When you are utilizing an environment where you own the hardware, you really are rigid in what you can and can't do and how far you can go, and that kind of limits you as a business. And it's important to think about, I've said this a few times, like think about the future and where you're going to scale and what your plans are. And that way you can really maximize your experience with the cloud, because now okay, I'm not going to go this hardware route because it's going to be too incapable of matching my scale. What does it look like moving to the cloud? And again, Diamond is a partner that can really help take you there and show you what that looks like.
Yeah, we're really proud of our guys. We've got quite a few Microsoft competencies, but we have a staff that's trained in Microsoft Azure. I can't count the number of Azure certifications that our technical staff holds, and we're constantly working on making sure that we're on top of these technologies and these things for all of our clients. So we do have experts on staff, not just one, but multiple that can help our customers with clients these solutions. Ryan, can you talk a little more about how businesses can leverage reserve instances to also control some of their Azure costs?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, we just talked about cost. That's probably one of the things that is top of mind for any customer. And so we also talked about working with Diamond to kind of assess your existing environment and what that environment could look like if you were to move it to the cloud. So when we talk about Azure reserved instances, what those mean are, it's really just a placeholder or locking in a price point for a specific amount of resources. So if you're a business who has worked with Diamond and you know that you're going to scale X amount and you need, X number of compute, you're going to have this many employees, they're going to be in these locations, this is what it's going to look like for my business, you're able to lock in the compute resources and pricing by reserving it for up to 3 years. So what's beautiful is you can work with the DiamondIT team and say, this is my existing environment. This is what we would like it to look like in the cloud. And in order to save everyone some money, we can lock in that price using Azure reserved instances. So it really just reserves those resources for you and kind of locks you in at that rate. So again, super great way to save a little bit of money. But I will say this, you have to understand, your business needs and where you're going to scale in order to really maximize what those reserve instances look like. And, highly recommend working with someone like a DiamondIT to help navigate those waters so you're making the right decision for your business. But it's a beautiful way to run your business and save some money along the way.
Yeah, just like with moving to the cloud, reserved instances doesn't have to be an absolute, right? We can set a reserved instance just on, the core infrastructure or the core compute that you need. And so as you scale up and as you grow, if you guys want the cost savings, we can certainly add the reserved instances for that scale up. But if we want to hold on to just the base and get the cost savings on that for reserved instances, we can define where the line lives to that reserved instance to give you that scalability and flexibility. And sometimes those intricacies can really take some knowledge and understanding about how Azure works in order to do that properly, really get you guys that cost savings.
That's an important thing to note, is that, oftentimes what we see with customers is that they will run their, Azure business, as per usual, for a number of months to kind of see what their consumption looks like. Then once they really have a clear understanding of their business and scale and really where they want to be, then they go and do those reserve instances to lock in that pricing. So, again, Jeremy kind of touched on that just now. It's a great way for you to work with the DiamondIT team to figure out what's best for you and what's going to save you the most amount of money.
Very cool. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for being here today. I want to remind everyone, all of our attendees, that we host these live event series, often. We try and do them once a month at least. We really want to focus on educating, the community and local businesses. We know that when we offer our guidance and education, we can certainly help all businesses. Our next event is going to be on how to quickly recover from a cyber attack. It's going to be more of a panel discussion. We really want to focus on whether you have the security, productivity, and budget to make sure you guys can quickly recover from an attack. Focusing on cyber insurance, ransomware rollback, and that's the endpoint security EDR, but also backups and recovery. I think our event is going to be on Wednesday, July 14th at 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. Pacific. So let us know. Look out for the invites. We'll be sending those things out shortly. And again, we want to thank everyone for attending today. Our emails here in the last slide. Shoot us a message in chat, shoot us an email, give us a phone call. We'd love to see how we can have a conversation and help you with an Azure or cloud solution or your existing business. Thanks for attending, and we'll see you soon.